Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating question. I mean, think about it. We're smarter than ever, right? We've got all this incredible technology. So why does it feel like our problems are just getting bigger and more out of control?
So check out this quote from the writer Edward de Bono. It really sets the stage with this incredible paradox. He says he's an optimist, that the future will be marvelous. But then he says, look, he's not naive. He sees the rising crime, the resource depletion, all of it. And he's like, the numbers don't back me up here. So what does he see that maybe we don't?
And that really gets us to the absolute core question of his work. If we are all so intelligent, how on earth did we manage to build this Frankenstein's monster of a world that seems to be totally spiraling out of our control?
Okay, so his answer? It's pretty radical. He basically says, look, stop blaming the politicians or the big corporations. There are no villains here. The real problem, he says, is a bug in our mental software. It's a fundamental flaw in the way we've all been taught to think.
So let's dig into this. De Bono's first major diagnosis is that we have a serious society-wide habit of negative thinking. And you know what's really wild? It's where this default way of thinking comes from. Turns out it was basically perfected by medieval monks, and they had one job: to defend religious dogma against anyone who questioned it. So it's a system built for fighting, for arguing, for poking holes in things. It was never ever designed for actually building something new or exploring crazy ideas.
So what does that mean for us today? Well, it means we're trying to build this amazing positive future, but we're using mental tools that are centuries out of date. It's like trying to build a rocket ship with a hammer and chisel. It's the wrong tool for the job. It's just not going to work.
And this quote right here just nails the biggest problem with only thinking critically, right? You can spend all your time fixing up an old system, making it perfect, but that's never going to lead you to the next big thing. You can't invent the motor car by just perfecting the stagecoach.
All right, so this flawed thinking, it's not just an individual problem. It actually scales up and creates huge problems for all of us through something de Bono calls logic bubbles.
So what's a logic bubble? Well, think of it as your own personal reality bubble. It's made up of everything you know, what you believe, the pressures you're under, and from inside your bubble, everything you do makes perfect, logical sense. The catch: everybody else is living inside their own bubble too.
Okay, let's see how this actually works with a real-world example. So you've got an exporter. Smart guy. He sees that Soviet ships are the cheapest way to move his goods, so he uses them. Makes sense, right? Boosts his profit. Then you have the government. They're also trying to be smart. They see their shipyards are struggling, so they subsidize them to keep people employed. See? In their own bubbles, everyone is making a perfectly rational decision. But what's the end result? A totally irrational situation where the government is paying to put its own shipping industry out of business. That right there is bubble logic in action.
So, okay, if that's the diagnosis, this old school thinking, and these logic bubbles, what's the prescription? De Bono says we have to consciously pick up some new mental tools. Tools that are actually designed for creating things, for building things. And the first tool he offers is a weird one. It's called PRU. It stands for Provocation Operation, and it's basically a heads up that you're about to say something that sounds completely nuts. The goal isn't to be right, it's to break out of your normal thinking patterns. So for example, a classic provocation is this: Poe, car wheels should be square. Now, your logical brain immediately screams, that's stupid. And yeah, it is, but that's not the point. You're not supposed to judge it, you're supposed to use it.
So, let's play with it. What happens if we actually follow this crazy idea? Well, a square wheel would have a huge contact patch with the ground. Okay, so how could we get that benefit, that great grip, without the world's bumpiest ride? Well, maybe that sparks an idea for a new tire tread that gives better grip in the rain. Or hey, what about a tire with a fluid-filled outer layer that changes shape? See? By starting with something totally ridiculous, we can land on some genuinely new creative ideas that pure logic would have just shut down from the start.
All right, so when we start using new tools like Poe, we can stop just putting out fires. We can start to redesign the very concepts that our whole society is built on.
Let's take a big one, like freedom. Normally we think of freedom and organization as total opposites, right? More rules, less freedom. But de Bono just flips that whole idea on its head. He says that good organization, think about traffic lights or a reliable power grid, doesn't limit your freedom. It's the very thing that makes freedom possible. Without it, all you have is chaos, the freedom of the jungle. So he suggests we build our future on 3 really powerful positive ideas. First, There's organization, which we now understand is what creates freedom. Second, effectiveness. This means being obsessed with making things that actually work in the real world, not just things that sound efficient in a meeting. And third, this really cool idea of contribution. Think of it as a new kind of social currency, where your value comes from contributing your skills to society outside of a normal paying job.
And this, really, is the core of the whole thing. Building a better future isn't about doing a better job of fixing our old, broken systems. It's not about winning more arguments. It's about designing completely new systems from the ground up.
Which brings us right back to that fantastic Stagecoach quote. It just perfectly sums up this entire idea. We can pour all our energy into making the perfect stagecoach, but that's never ever going to become a motor car. To get to the future, you have to be willing to invent something completely new.
And so, that leaves us with one last big question to think about. If our default thinking is constantly trying to perfect the stagecoach, what amazing, world-changing motor car is your own thinking preventing you from even seeing?